So today, we're going to solve a little literary mystery. But here's the crazy part. The answer also cracks open one of the biggest secrets in high-stakes banking. You know, how Wall Street really operates.
Okay, so picture this. It all starts with a puzzle. You've got this author, Ronald Anthony, who writes sci-fi stuff, novels like The Forever Year. Then you've got another author, also named Ronald Anthony, but this guy writes these super practical guides on credit repair. Totally different worlds, right?
So what's the deal here? Is this just a wild coincidence, or is there something else going on? Well, it turns out the answer to this little riddle is the perfect way to understand a huge idea in economics, an idea that explains exactly how your bank is thinking about you.
Yeah, it all boils down to something called private information. You know, the economists have a fancy term for it, information asymmetry, but the idea is actually super simple. It just means that in any deal, one person almost always knows something the other one doesn't. And that little piece of secret knowledge, that's their edge. It's an information advantage.
Okay, but hold on. What in the world does some author's pen name have to do with a giant bank deciding whether to give someone a loan? Well, believe it or not, it's the exact same principle. And a really fascinating research paper from the FDIC is going to show us how.
All right, so let's jump into that world of high finance. We're going to dig into this FDIC report that basically gave researchers a backstage pass to see what's going on inside the heads of the biggest banks in America.
I mean, for the first time ever, these researchers got access to the holy grail, the confidential internal risk ratings that banks slap on every single corporate loan they make. This is the stuff that's usually locked down, you know? It's their honest-to-God opinion on how likely they think a company is to go belly up.
So, with this incredible data in hand, they could finally ask a really powerful question. If a bank, in secret, starts getting nervous about a company, does that secret feeling actually predict what's going to happen to that company's stock?
And the answer was a huge, resounding yes. When a bank privately got more pessimistic, that company's stock would then underperform the market by an average of 79 basis points. Now that's 0.79% over the next 3 months. And get this wasn't based on public news. This was the bank's secret opinion literally predicting the future.
I mean, the implication here is just massive. This is cold, hard proof that banks see trouble coming way before the rest of us do. They see the writing on the wall before it even hits the news. That is a classic information advantage.
And what's really cool is this chart shows you exactly where that advantage is strongest. Look at the smallest companies, the ones that are kind of hard to get a read on. The effect is enormous. But then you look at the biggest, most watched companies on the planet, and poof, the advantage is gone. It completely disappears. And why is that? Well, for giants like Apple or Microsoft, there's pretty much no private information left for a bank to dig up. Everything's already out there.
Okay, so we know banks have this edge, but how? Where does this crystal ball-like information even come from? Well, the research points to 2 main ways they get it.
First off, they actively produce information. Think about it. When a bank is about to lend out millions of dollars, they're not just going to read some annual report. No way. They send in their people, they investigate, they interview management. They've got skin in the game, so they do their homework. And second, they just get early access to crucial signs. A bank is the very first to know if a company suddenly maxes out its credit line. That is a massive red flag that something is wrong long before they have to announce it in some quarterly report.
All right, so now that we've got our heads wrapped around this idea of an information advantage, let's go back to where we started. Back to our mystery about the 2 authors named Ronald Anthony.
You know, the clue was hiding right there in plain sight the whole time. On the Wikipedia page for a guy named Lou Aranaka, it says right there that his sci-fi novels were published under a pen name Ronald Anthony.
So who is this Lou Aranaka guy? Well, he's not just some random writer. He is an absolute legend in the sci-fi world. He founded Bantam Spectra, the publishing imprint that brought us game changers like William Gibson and Neil Gaiman. He even kicked off the entire official Star Wars book series. I mean, the guy was a publisher, an editor, and a major force in the industry. And bingo. There it is. Mystery solved. They are one and the same person. Lou Aranaka, this giant of sci-fi publishing, was using the pen name Ronald Anthony, and not just for his fiction, but for his work in a totally different world. One person, carefully managing 2 different public identities.
Okay, so let's bring it all home. Let's connect the author's secret to the bank's big advantage.
This table just lays out the parallel beautifully. On one side, you have the bank. Their private information, that's secret internal risk data. And what's their advantage? Well, they can predict how the market's going to move and invest their money more safely. Now look at the author. His private information, his real identity. And his advantage? He gets to build a whole separate career to manage his public persona. Maybe he wanted his novels to be judged purely on their own merit, not because he was this big shot publisher. Or maybe he just wanted to keep his creative side separate from his other work. No matter the reason, it's a classic information advantage.
At the end of the day, that's what a pen name is, right? It's a way to control information. Lou Aronica created this gap, this information asymmetry between himself and the public. His story takes that big, abstract idea from the bank study and makes it something we can all instantly understand. It makes it human.
And just when you think you've grasped how big this advantage is for the banks, listen to this. The researchers themselves say their findings probably represent a lower bound on the real advantage. In other words, what they were able to measure is likely just the tip of the iceberg.
So here's the big takeaway. From a bank's secret spreadsheets to an author's secret identity, our world is constantly being shaped by information that the rest of us just don't have. These information gaps are everywhere, and they're quietly pulling the strings behind the scenes.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. What kind of private information held by someone else might be shaping your world right now?